Other than that, Tom Horn sang happy birthday to me this week.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dennis. Happy birthday to you.
How do you even know it was your birthday?
Because the photographer I was with was like, oh, did you know it's Dennis's birthday? And
Oh, God.
I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
And welcome back to another edition of the Politics Unplugged podcast today, joined by Republic columnist Laurie Roberts. We're going to be talking about some of her recent columns. Always insightful, always love reading those columns. Big fan. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me,
But
Dennis.
I guess we'll start with the elephant in the room. There's been some changes, or perspective changes in your work life. You want to explain what's kind of going on?
Yeah, this will probably be the last time I'll be on your podcast because...
No, we'll always bring you back.
Come September 8th, I'll be retiring.
Yeah,
Leaving the paper.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's been 4 decades, and it only feels like 10. Just kidding.
Yeah, big changes at the Republic. I know we don't want to get too much into that. It's just the sad state of the media, but other folks are taking buyouts and retiring as well.
Right. Gannett offered a very nice buyout opportunity to any employee in the entire chain who wanted to take it. It was just the right time for me. So I was going to probably retire at the end of the year anyway. So, hey, this was a great deal for me. And I have mixed feelings about it. I will miss covering things. I will miss writing. But going to find out if there's more to life after journalism.
Is there?
I'll let you know.
That's what we're bringing you back for. Like we'll do a 6-month check-in. It's like, is there life after this? Because I don't know anything anymore.
Yeah, I know it's going to be really hard with the elections to stay away from that. But so instead of writing columns, I'll write text messages to my friends.
Yeah, that'll be great. And congratulations, you made it through. I got to ask you though, in the decades you've been in journalism, like what are some of the biggest changes you've seen?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm going to date myself here, but my very first professional job in journalism, well, as an intern, was actually at the Arizona Republic.
Wow.
It was in 1977 or 78. They still typed out their stories on Royal typewriters, and there were ink pots all over because you had to glue the things together. When the presses started up for the afternoon paper, there's an afternoon newspaper, the floors would shake.
The old Gazette, yeah.
We would chase stories. It seems like as the technology has gotten more sophisticated and allowed us to do so much more, it's done nothing but move up our deadlines. When I covered the night cops beat, I could chase stories until 1 a.m. and get them, if it was a big enough story, and get it on the front page. They say chase because the presses had already started, and you would slow them down and slam in the new story and then fire them back up again. Now I think our deadlines are probably yesterday for tomorrow. That's a bit of a joke, but they're very, very early. And come, I think October, the paper won't even be printed in Arizona anymore. So there'll be no chasing or anything else. It's going to be trucked down from Nevada, I believe. Many, many changes, many of them improvements, and some of them not so much. Of course, the biggest change is the internet and how that changed everything. Instead of writing today for tomorrow, you're writing today for 2 minutes from now. Yeah. And that is fraught with so many problems because, of course, everybody wants to be first, but you also got to be right. And, it's a tough time for our profession.
Well, it's funny you bring up the technology because there's been a lot of improvements with that. I mean, think about when I first started, like campaign finance stuff, it's all online. Most of that. I mean,
it's a lot easier.
It's so
bills at the legislature.
Yeah.
I used to have to go try to chase them down when they were put in the hopper. It was a physical place where they put it, and you would have to go chase it down and sweet talk somebody into making you copies. The same with court records and all sorts of things. Much easier to be a reporter now. When I covered the Capitol, you'd have to actually be in the court in the rooms. You'd be out hanging in the hallways, seeing who's there. Now reporters can watch it on TV or on their computers. I'm not sure that that's an improvement.
I was going to say, like, some of the downside is with the technology improving, you lose some of that old school shoe leather reporting, and there are things that you just miss if you're not there.
Right. When I was at the Capitol, if you saw a certain combination of lobbyists and or lawmakers lingering around the doors to a committee hearing room, you knew, I got to go in there and see what's going on. You also made personal connections with people. Now, in my opinion, so much of journalism is done via press release or via text message or via a message through Twitter. So there's less face-to-face interaction where reporters can ask that such a valuable follow-up question. All you do is get statements from people.
We get statement you don't know, and a lot of times with email, text messages, is it really them replying to me? I mean, I know it's their number, but is it really them or their email? Like how many lawyers' eyes or consultant eyes did that go through before I got this statement?
Well, there is that, but it also insulates them from that second hard question that Dennis might ask.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? It's always most good politicians, they're ready for that the obvious question. It's the follow-up question that's more difficult for them to respond. But to your point about the personal connection, I think we've lost a lot of that, and it does make it easier for politicians to go after reporters and vice versa.
Well, when I covered the Capitol here, I could wander around up on the second and third floor off where the offices are of the legislators. I could wander onto the floor. You could wander anywhere. Well, now technology is such that they've locked those places up, and they say it's for security reasons, and I get that, except that we've already been vetted. Those people who are members of the Capitol Press Corps have already been vetted. Chances are we're not coming in there with a knife or to assassinate anyone. No. So we ought to have that access still. But I think that they have used security to sort of shut themselves off and close themselves off from reporters and their inconvenient questions, so that they only have to let you up if they want to see you. Yeah,
and I got a little bit of that when I first got down to the legislature. It was still very open, particularly in the Senate. And be filing, writing your story on deadline, and late in the afternoon, early evening, and you'd be like, oh, I needed to ask this question. You run up to the third floor and like go into Carolyn Allen's office, and she'd be there, and like, hey, Carolyn, Senator, are you still there? She's like, remember Carolyn Allen?
Yeah,
she's
of
like,
course.
I'm fucking back. And get a quote and then go back and file my story.
Of course, in those days, you were in the Capitol press room, and that was, of course, dumped. I don't know what they turned it into now, but they wanted the reporters out of there. But it's always good for the public to understand and know that they're pushing reporters farther and farther away, both through the use of PIOs, through the use of texts and electronic messaging, and through the physical use of just walling themselves off from reporters.
Like you don't even can't even call a PIO at DPS anymore, the Department of Public Safety. It's all through email.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And sometimes I sit back and go, how did it get here? How did we let this happen?
Well, what has surprised me is, like, you look at a city like the city of Phoenix, they've got, I don't even know how many PIOs.
Army of PIOs over there.
But I think that you could fill an auditorium with the number of PIOs they have. Wouldn't it just be easier if you had department heads who could speak for their own departments? They're the people who know stuff anyway. They're the people we want to talk to. Again, it's a way to keep us at arm's length.
I know, and particularly at the city, I mean, you could run a whole robust news station for the PIOs over there. I know this because many of our former employees have migrated over there.
Probably a fair number of hours as well.
You probably have a pretty good newscast come out of there and the county. So, all right. So, enough of the memory lane, the good old days of journalism. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the stuff you've been writing here recently. I want to start with this Karrin Taylor Robson piece you wrote. The headline is, Karrin Taylor Robson is campaigning hard on a road to nowhere. Now, how can you write that when they're releasing a poll that shows that she's up one? She's beating the undecideds by 1 point.
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't believe any polls that you hear right now. It's a year out. There's so much that can happen. And I guess you could also say don't believe my column for the same reason. But I was struck this week because she put out a press release about making her 100th campaign stop since June 1st. Well, she's a hard worker. Can't say can't say any differently, but I keep wondering, she's doing and saying the same things that she did and said when she ran for governor against Kari Lake 4 years ago, trying to oomph her way into that far-right lane, but that lane's taken. And I think anybody who's followed her career over the last 20, 30 years knows that lane is not a lane that she ever traveled in. She's a traditional business conservative Republican.
It's in her literally in her DNA.
Right.
Her dad, her brothers,
And so when she rushes to gush over the latest whatever thing that Donald Trump did, it's just not particularly authentic. I get why she's doing it. It's where the Republican Party is now, particularly Republican primary voters. And if you can't get out of the primary, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I still contend that had she defeated Kari Lake in 2022, we would have a Governor Taylor Robson.
But that narrative is not going to play out next time around because she's once you are baptized MAGA or try to do that, you are MAGA. You're going to be seen that way in the general election. So I think that dynamic is different. If she's able to get out of this primary, she is going to have some issues if she plans on tacking back to the center.
Well, yes and no. Yes, because she'll have the MAGA vote, and those people will vote. Independents, again, back to polls, which I just said you should ignore, but a lot of polling nationally is showing consistently that independents are kind of tiring a little bit of Trump and wondering what they got themselves into in certain areas. And so those people are going to be up for grabs, I think, by either side. The problem for Katie Hobbs is going to be turnout. Two things. One, Democrats are not registering in the numbers that they used to, while Republicans are going gangbusters. So there's a bigger gap in voter registration between the two parties than I ever recall seeing. And number two is turnout. Last year it was, I think I was told, +9 Republican turnout, and I'm told by the nerds that watch these things that you can expect in the midterms for that turnout to almost double the gap. I don't think it'll almost double, but even if you go from a +9 to a +12, if you're Katie Hobbs, how do you overcome that? So I think it's going to be a banner year for Republicans. I mean, barring something happening, barring maybe the tariffs sending the economy plunging, which we haven't seen as yet, or something else that is untold, I think it's Republicans' year.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We still got to wait and see where we're at a year from now, and a lot can change. I mean, I was just mentioning on the TV show, it seems like we've been told all year that the tariffs are going to tank the economy. It's going to tank the economy. And the economy has just been resilient.
It's just going along. I mean, now what they're saying, and I'm no economist, but now what they're saying is, well, all of the stockpiles goods that people had are now running out, and so now the economy is going to tank. It's almost as if some people are really hoping the economy tanks. Personally, I hope it doesn't, because I'm retiring. I got to pay for stuff. So, but I mean, it just depends on what happens. And I would say that if the economy tanks, all bets are off. If I go to the grocery store and all of a sudden eggs cost $10, then Democrats are going to be looking pretty good. Yeah. But I just don't see it happening.
And it's funny when Taylor Robson on the show, we've talked about this a lot. Again, to your point, I don't think they see her, the MAGA voters don't see her as authentic MAGA.
Because she's not. They're right.
Yeah. And that's a problem. And in Biggs, for all that Biggs is, probably MAGA before it was MAGA.
Yes, he was. He chaired that House Republican, the House what's called Freedom Caucus for many years. He is authentically all in Donald Trump, and she says she's all in Donald Trump too. But things that bother me that she does are like a couple of years ago when it was on the ballot to offer in-state tuition to illegal immigrants who have graduated from Arizona high schools, et cetera. She not only was for it, she cut a TV commercial for it, explaining, I thought persuasively, that it's going to boost our economy. It doesn't help us to have a bunch of people who aren't educated since they're in the state anyway. Yet when Donald Trump signed an executive order, I think in April or maybe March, halting that practice. She was all in for that. So, well, how can you be all in for that if just a few years ago you were all for illegal immigrants being able to get in-state tuition?
As far as I can tell, too, she has not disagreed with the White House or Donald Trump on a single issue.
No.
You know,
not to my knowledge. It's if he says it's good, she says it's great. And it just, I don't know. It doesn't. I think that would be a turnoff, and to your point, would turn off some voters in November who are, casting about for a way to go. But still, I think that the turnout advantage is going to be pretty difficult to overcome.
It's going to be difficult on that. Let's talk a little bit too. You wrote another column about some of the infighting going on with the GOP, particularly with the GOP chair Gina Swoboda, who, by all accounts, and just look at the results, done a pretty good record. She, kept a couple of swing seats and CD1, CD6, Siscomani, Schweikert last year.
Kept control of the Arizona legislature and even boosted control a little bit when the Democrats were coming hard to gain that 1 or 2 seats that they needed. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, but it's like she did a pretty good job on that, and then she finds herself now at war with the Turning Point USA folks and some of those folks because over ESAs, because she had the audacity to suggest there should be guardrails on the state school voucher program, which to me is still it still takes getting used to. I mean, fiscal accountability was like the hallmark.
That used to be a Republican thing, but it's not when it comes to the ESA program. They seem to think that any little small control over what a parent can use taxpayer money for in furtherance of their child's quote-unquote education, any effort to look at that is somehow the beginning of the slippery slope that eventually it'll all be gone. Yeah. What they overlook, though, is if there is no control and at some point it's going to be like alt fuels and something stupid is going to get through and public support for this thing, if it really indeed exists, is going to evaporate. So it would be to their advantage, I would think, to put in reasonable controls to say that maybe you can't use taxpayer money for your child's education for corsets or maternity clothes, possibly not for ski passes. Why is that a controversial thing? So all she was doing was reacting to a story by a television reporter on another station. Craig Harris at 12 News. She was reacting to his story that ESA money was being used for things like diamond rings and just a whole litany of things that I think anybody would say that's unreasonable and outrageous. And so one of the 12 News people interviewed Gina about the story and said, do you see a problem? Do you see a need for controls? And she said, like with any big program that explodes and becomes big very quickly, you're going to see these kind of things happen, and we need to have some controls over how the money is spent to make sure it's being spent wisely. It's not a controversial thing to say, but the far right went bonkers.
Well, I mean, look at all the guardrails they've put on, food stamps, what you can and can't buy with that anymore.
Well, that's different because that's not their sacred cow pet program. But I would say there, too, we ought to have controls.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that stuff, like, food stamp stuff. Like, no, you can't buy... You can't buy whiskey with this or whatever.
Maybe you shouldn't be buying Twinkies either, I would argue. You should be buying nutritious food to feed your family.
And maybe should be stuff you shouldn't be sending that on. But it's also interesting because it's led to this war or this inter-party fight with Republicans with Swoboda and some of the folks there. But there's also Swoboda too has been thinking about or I should say the superintendent of public instruction race. Kim Yee is now making the ESA thing, and Tom Horn.
Oh, yeah, that race.
That issue, in that race, has become like this thing that, how dare Tom Horn not be more, crack down on spending more or less.
There's another person who I wonder about the authenticity of what's going on. I always saw Kimberly Yee as a traditional business-oriented conservative as well. She used to work in the state treasurer's office before she became state treasurer herself, and I never really saw her as a hard right person, but I think Jake Hoffman, who is a senator and in charge of the Arizona Freedom Caucus, has recruited her to run. He's recruited a whole stable of hard right candidates to primary people that he doesn't like, and one of them is Yee, and she has come out hard against Tom Horne. How dare you, try to regulate ESAs in any way? It doesn't come across as particularly authentic when you say Tom Horne doesn't like ESAs and he's soft on ESAs. Well,
because he's not.
He was for school choice before school choice people were for school choice.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's the case at all. I think that he is denying some ridiculous expenses. $24,000 golf simulator was one, I think.
Yeah.
Ridiculous expenses, and he's turned them down. And the ESA community seems to think, how dare you do this stuff?
Yeah, because Tom Horne's a lot of things, a whole lot of things. Anti-school voucher is not one of them.
No, he's not. He is trying to, I think, under the guise of we don't want this to be all an alt fuels program that just implodes on itself. He, too, is asking for more staff. He's been asking for years for more staff to oversee the spending. Legislature won't put it into the budget for him. We have the same size staff as we had when it was a very tiny program for just a few thousand students. Now it's a program for almost 100,000 students, reaching almost $1 billion. He has the same tiny staff. There's no way they can oversee the spending, and it appears to me that that's the way the Republicans in the legislature like it.
Yeah, and he's old school from the old school Republican that we were talking about. Like accountability, fiscal accountability was a hallmark of that party, and he'd bring up alt fuels and stuff. I think Tom Horne comes from that. He may have been at the legislature back when alt fuels was breaking.
He probably was.
So this is pretty consistent with him. Is like he's going to make sure spending is accounted for.
Right. I see him pretty consistently trying to impose reasonable controls, but there's only so much he can do, given the way the laws are written and given the size of the staff that he has. And they're going to come after him in the primary in a big way to get rid of him because he dares to suggest, oversight.
So speaking of Swoboda in elections and whatnot, there's been a lot of discussion over the past year or so, or mostly since the election in November, that Swoboda may take a shot at running for Secretary of State and running state elections here in Arizona. But now that talk has kind of cooled off. What's your sense? You think she's going to take
I think she would be an excellent candidate. She would have to run against Representative Alexander Colin, another one of Jake Hoffman's horses in the stable.
Who you might remember from the Kraken.
Colin is the elections attorney who did the Kraken lawsuit alleging massive fraud in the 2020 election, couldn't back it up in any way, and had a federal judge tossed it out very famously saying, gossip and innuendo isn't evidence, which should have embarrassed him. He had several more.
He's an attorney. It should have been embarrassing.
Right. Well, he had several more elections lawsuits, all of which landed him in hot water with the State Bar Association. I think he ultimately had to take a class in ethics, which I don't know if it's the ethics of filing ridiculous, frivolous lawsuits or what.
I want to take that. I just want to see what that class is about.
Right. So naturally, he's running for expert in elections that he is. Yeah. He's running for Secretary of State, hoping to knock off Adrian Fontes, the Democrat. Republicans would be wise, in my opinion, to have an alternative. And Gina Swoboda, her background is such that she's considered an expert in election policy. She has worked for the Secretary of State's office under both Republican and Democratic administrations. She has consulted and advised on election law to the state Senate. I think next year she'll be getting a pretty nice little lucrative contract herself, by the way. Right. I think next year she'll be doing the same with the House. It could be said that she would be a good candidate. She doesn't scream conspiracy every time that something looks funny, because she knows enough about the way things work that she can actually diagnose what the problem is, and if there's a problem, figure out how to fix it. She'd be an excellent, strong candidate to run against Adrian Fontes, but in the end, what I'm hearing is that she probably won't do it because she doesn't want to cause a bloody primary in the Republican Party.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I find Swoboda a very interesting Republican. She was endorsed for the chairman by Donald Trump.
She was, but the Turning Point people and the hard right people dislike her. And what I am told, it's because she has not allowed them to sort of wheedle their way into the middle of the party, and they don't have the influence there that they would like to have. They ran somebody against her earlier this year, the
it would have been this year,
They ran Cory McCarthy, the one Republican who managed to lose his legislative seat. So they thought, gee, he'd make a great chairman of the Republican Party.
And author of some of the most spectacular press releases that used to drop in my email box all the time, every time he filed a bill. But go on.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so they tried to get her out then. They couldn't get her out, and now they're using this latest round of her daring to suggest some reasonable guardrails on ESAs. They're using that as a call to get her to resign or the state committee to oust her. There is a lot of bad blood there, and yet when you look at that party, which just like the Democrats are split, the Republicans are split between the traditional conservatives and the far hard right conservatives, but she managed to somehow hold them together with stick and gum or glue. I don't know how she did it last year, but she managed to bridge the gap, and they won a fair amount of races that were impressive, as we talked about. Yeah. So her record's good.
Yeah, and I think too some of that's her tone, because we've statewide MAGA candidates we've gotten accustomed to, and I don't want to paint everybody with a broad brush, but we've gotten accustomed to folks like an Abe Hamadeh or Carrie Lake, where it's like wanting to put people in jail and calling people names and all this other stuff. And Swoboda has got a very different tone from that when you sit down, you talk to her, you listen to her speak.
Well, a perfect example is last year, right before the election, when they came up with that mistake or glitch or error or whatever you want to call it with a motor vehicle, that somehow a bunch of people, they couldn't really say how many, but probably in the hundreds of thousands, were voting and have been voting for a long time but have never proved their citizenship. Now, the typical MAGA response is, oh, my God, this is awful. They're probably all illegal immigrants and blah, 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 blah. And she got in front of a whiteboard and made a very boring video, but also a very measured one full of information that explained what happened to people, so that she sort of tamped down that inclination to just go right to, it's a conspiracy. We need perp walks. We need people in jail. And she said, no, this is what happened. This is what needs to happen. And she was very methodical. And it was an example of what I would call reasoned leadership.
Yeah, and there was talk about whether or not that group of people you're talking about should even be allowed to vote, and Swoboda was also leading the charge. Like, most of those people on this list are Republicans.
Yeah. That kind of shut him up at that point. But she made the point, and I think the courts backed her up, to say you can't be just stripping people of their constitutional rights until you have affirmative proof that they don't belong there. More recently, she defended Chris May's decision on that very subject, where she said you can't just be throwing these people off the rolls. You have to first affirmatively prove that they didn't belong on the rolls. And Gina Swoboda said, well, yeah, that's right. That's what the law says. And oh, my God, it's another example of where she's doing things to help the Democratic narrative. No, she's just speaking from experience and talking about facts.
Let's wrap up, too. Big story this week. You also wrote a column about this, maybe one of the dumber decisions I've seen by a politician in quite a while. We got a sitting state representative and her daughter trying to bring a box cutter onto a high school campus, allegedly, less than a week after a student had been stabbed to death there. Right,
Maryvale High School. We all know the tragic story there of one student stabs another to death. A 16-year-old boy is dead, and the school district is left with trying to figure out how did this kid get this knife onto campus? They supposedly have a pretty good system of where they can detect weapons. I don't know if it's metal detectors or what, but they have what they call some, I can't remember the name of it, but they call it a weapons detection system or something. Yeah. So Monday is the first day back at school, where the school's just, it's the beginning of the school year. Let's try to get back to normal. We just got to cope with this. We got to also figure out what happened. We got to get classes, got to get these kids back to school. They're pretty busy. So Lydia Hernandez and apparently her daughter, according to the school district, get this bright idea. Let's go test the system. So one of them puts a box cutter in her purse while the other one is taping. This is all according to the school district. Lydia Hernandez denies it, but while the other is taping it to see if we can slip through the system. Well, to my knowledge, neither of these geniuses are security experts. I'm assuming that the Phoenix Union High School District is employing security experts right as we speak to figure out what happened here, and more importantly, how we keep it from ever happening again. The last thing they need on a Monday morning is these two geniuses trying to test the system.
Yeah.
Neither of them have kids in the school or in the school district. They both sit on the school board of another school district. So what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
It was a ridiculous decision, and several people have said that they should resign their positions.
Yeah, and Tom Horn told me, they should both step down because they're both on that, I think the Cartwright board.
Elementary school. It's a
board,
feeder
yeah.
district that feeds into
Yeah,
that.
they're on that. And then obviously Lydia Hernandez, as state representative, Tom Horn says they should step down from all of those offices. But to me, I was like, I would love to ask them, like, what the hell was the end game here?
Well,
Let's say you got a box cutter through. Were you going to be like posting pictures on social media? Like, how did you think this was going to work out?
Well, she claims that wasn't why she was there. She was just there to support a parent. And a la Justine Wadsack, she's now speculating that the district is making all this up and they're just retaliating against her because she's been supportive of parents who've been upset since the murder on their campus. Well, I think we would all be supportive of the parents of the child who was murdered on the campus, and I think the school district would be too. So I'm not quite seeing where the retaliation would come in. She says there was no box cutter. School district says that they confiscated it.
Mm-hmm.
There either was or there wasn't, and I tend to think there probably was. And it's just
We'll have to wait. I mean, I'm sure there'll be security video that we will get our hands on and whatnot that'll show the whole thing. But, I found it interesting the night the story broke, she told another TV station that it was all BS and it was made up and this, that, and the other thing. I went out the next morning to her house, knocked on the door, really wanted to hear her side of the story, didn't answer. I made calls, emails, never got a response from her.
Well, probably because she realized she sounds dumb. To say that it's retaliation just reminds me of Justine Wadsack, who was caught driving 71 in a 35-mile-per-hour zone, according to the Tucson police, who eventually, after the session ended...
That's political prosecution there, right?
And she's, it's retaliation because I've been looking into things and they don't like me. Right, because you're driving 71 in a 35. They're saying, gee, here's our chance to retaliate. Yeah. Or maybe you just shouldn't be driving 71 and a 35. I mean,
71 and a 50 would be bad. 71 and a 35 isn't like crazy.
Well, it is crazy.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is she's sued over it, claiming persecution because she said she felt persecuted. So, and she says, I never said that, but now she's sued for persecution. So, go figure.
Yeah. All right, well, I think we'll end it there unless there's anything else you wanted to chit-chat about before we let you get out of here.
Nope. It's just been a great ride, and I've appreciated all the people through the years who've read the stuff that I've written, and the rest of you keep going at it.
Well, thank you very much for everything you did and have done in the columns you've written over the years. I've always enjoyed them, even the ones I don't necessarily agree with. I've always felt like, you added a very important voice to the conversation, and hopefully you'll still be providing that on some platform or the other at your convenience.
You never know. For right now, there's grandchildren to rock and places to go, and the pool's calling my name, so just take a little break.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, thank you very much for stopping by here, and definitely come back whenever, check back in and let us know, because I know Colin is dying to know, too. Is there life after journalism?
Yeah, well, I'll let you know.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. And welcome back to the second half of the Politics Unplugged podcast. And, unfortunately, have a bit of some somber, some sad news. We just learned about here just a few minutes ago that we're going to start this off with. And, Colin Stanton, our producer here, is going to kind of tell us what's happening.
Yeah, we just learned of the passing of Frank Camacho, who was a longtime anchor and reporter here at 3TV, was the host of Politics Unplugged before Dennis took over as host of Politics Unplugged. I know Frank had a long, tough battle with cancer. Just got the news moments ago of his passing. Retired from here in 2012. Went to work for a while as a spokesperson for the state Democratic Party. Had done a lot of work in the community since then. But very, very sad news for us today.
Yeah, I was his replacement, not just with the show. When he retired in 2012, I was his replacement, the reporter position.
Yeah.
And things, people of a certain age who have been in the Valley a long time knew him. He was, I believe, the weekend anchor for a number of years.
He was,
here,
yeah,
for a long time. And I just have to say, he was just a really, really great person. He's a very nice guy, nice man, just a great person.
I've worked in this town for 30 years now. I don't think I've ever heard a single negative thing ever said about Frank.
No, you'll hear negative stuff about me and a lot of my colleagues. You're not going to hear that about Frank.
No.
He's just really class act. He was a real character. And, we just learned about this a few minutes ago. And unfortunately, we don't have any, tributes for him right now. And there will be.
There will be. And, if you watch the TV version of Politics Unplugged this weekend, you won't see anything about it. And that's because we learned about it about 2 hours after the taping. So, very sad news for this Friday.
Yeah.
He had been fighting some health battles for a while, but still, when it comes, it's a bit of a shock.
Yeah. Thoughts out to his family, his friends, coworkers still here. Remember Frank? I mean, just a really good guy, and some really bad news, and
and a Phoenix native, which is always a rarity, and in this business, it's great. It's a pretty transient business by and large. Frank was born and raised here and brought that perspective to the airwaves, which is invaluable.
And one of the other fun things that is, every now and then you got to go back through and go through our archives. Go up, the old tapes upstairs and whatnot, and grab that. And you go through that and you see, Frank was on all the big stories.
Yeah,
like all the big stories, man. I mean, ASCAM. You go back, you look at the old tapes. There's Frank.
Yeah.
Napolitano elected, you go back, there's Frank, covering the election, a lot of all that stuff, man. He was all over it. He's a real legacy and a real history he in this valley and in news and just the cultural landscape. He leaves behind. He just, it's a different era, the golden age, I guess, of local television news, and he leaves one hell of a legacy behind.
He does.
So, it's a hard pivot, but Frank would understand, I think, and Frank he loved politics.
Yeah, and it was a news junkie even after his retirement. Yeah,
certainly was. So, let's we'll have more on this coming next week on the show. I'm sure we will be preparing something for that. But in the meantime, let's pivot and let's talk a little bit about politics, something I know Frank would love to be talking about right now. And
he would.
Let's talk a little bit about Laurie Roberts, what she had to say. I was really pleased she stopped by here and gave a little bit more context to the story. What happened over at the Republic. It's been characterized as a bloodbath, blah, blah, blah. Laurie Roberts is saying it definitely wasn't. That she's got in her words, a generous buyout, and she was planning to retire anyway, and whatnot. What'd you think?
Yeah, and I understand not wanting to characterize it as a bloodbath. The thing that was jarring to me about the set of buyouts, as they were reported, was there were a lot of big names there, man. Mm-hmm. Laurie Roberts has been there for years. Ed Montini's been there for years.
Mary Jo Pitzel.
Yeah. Elvia Diaz, I believe.
Yep. And others.
When you think of the Republic, when I think of the Republic, I think of Ed Montini and Laurie Roberts.
Yeah.
And it's jarring how much the paper has changed. And it's not so much that you lose the old names and you learn the new ones. I don't know that we learn a lot of new ones these days. It just sort of gets smaller.
Yeah, the media has changed so quickly as we've been living through it. Yeah. You and I are close to the same age. It's just unfathomable to think some of those names aren't going to be there, and to watch the shrinkage from the Republic, who used to have bureaus all over the valley and had bureaus around throughout the state. It had a massive editorial staff back in the day. And now, I mean, I haven't been in that newsroom in years. Now I've heard people who do go over there. There's like hardly anybody there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And moving the print to Las Vegas.
Wow.
And that's, you know, as she said, it's funny, as technology's gotten better and better, the deadlines have moved forward and forward, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing because, I mean, the internet killed the newspapers. The eventual death is close.
Yeah. And bad decisions from newspaper people back in the day.
There were.
Yeah.
But the problem is they start making moves to cut money because they're not making as much as they used to before the internet. And what they do is they start eliminating all the reasons you read the paper in the first place.
Yep.
And we're now at a point. This week the Atlanta Journal-Constitution announced they're killing the print product.
Wow.
They're going to be digital only, and they're not the first, and there are going to be plenty of others to come.
Yeah. On the other hand, too, you've seen, and this is good or bad, I mean, you've seen the rise of certain Substacks and writers that can go out and do that. You know, journalism, moving forward, maybe that's something for a future podcast discussion. We bring on some journalism professors, the pointy heads over there, or the Cronkite or whatever. Maybe the future of journalism is more like branded journalism, like, oh, that reporter I trust or I like.
Yeah.
With the rise of some of that, it comes the downside, and there's a lot of garbage out there that is presented as like, fact and truthful, and there's a lot of garbage where you can't trust anything that they say.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good journalism out there, but I don't know how you survive doing that.
You can't, for the average person, news consumer who needs this information, you can't subscribe to 20 different Substacks.
No.
And keep up with everything. It is getting harder and harder to find that news.
Yeah.
But it's sad. But we wish Laurie Roberts a lot of fun, a great time as she enjoys her retirement. I hope there is life after journalism.
Yes.
I hope she comes back and she reports that there's just this wonderful, magical place.
Yeah. Comes back with a tan and a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
Drinking out of a coconut with a straw, she's always been really extremely sharp in her political analysis and her observations. And I think one of the things folks heading into the 2026 election cycle, which we're getting closer and closer to, is that registration disadvantage between Republicans and Democrats. Yeah. And it's just amazing to me to see, how inept maybe the Democratic Party is, that they continue to lose ground in voter registration.
Yeah.
And that is a significant situation that the governor, Adrian Fontes, Chris Mays, they're all going to have to deal with that.
Yes. And I keep hearing people say they need to deal with it.
And they're not.
I don't really see any action.
No.
To deal with it. And you may have some level of public sentiment on your side. The tide may shift as at the midterms, as it typically does. But if you're working at a disadvantage of about 300,000 registered voters, it's a tough one to make up. And it doesn't seem, in a state where we have a Democratic governor and 2 Democratic senators and Democratic Secretary of State, and Democratic Attorney General, it seems like maybe you ought to be able to get those numbers up to a semi-competitive level.
You would think. And it just, we've probably talked about it on the show, too. It irks me all the time. Like, national news organizations come to Arizona. It's like, oh, Arizona, swing state, purple state.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
bullshit.
It's not a purple state. It's a red state.
It's a red state that that the Republican Party over the past several cycles have run some really terrible candidates.
Right.
Who, by the way, almost won, even though
Yes.
they turned off so many people, so many Republicans. Carrie Lake didn't lose by a lot.
No.
In their government.
And that is with her getting up and telling a good portion of the Republican Party to get out. She doesn't need you.
Yeah.
And still, it was tight.
Yeah. So
the Republican Party keeps nominating people that anyone outside of like an extreme MAGA really doesn't seem to like at all.
Mm-hmm.
And we always bring up the same example, but Kimberly Yee won the treasurer race by a landslide against a perfectly reasonable opponent, but she wasn't campaigning as MAGA.
Mm-mm.
If you want an indicator of where the politics of Arizona lie, I think that's a pretty good indicator.
Yeah, and so it just it irks me. It's like all these national journalists in sports that don't know shit about some of the smaller teams, but will talk chapter and verse about what they see as the problems with them. It's like, no, you don't know. You're building off of like cheap, lazy narratives.
Yes,
like come to Arizona. Arizona's a complicated state. It's a nuanced state, as I would imagine every state in the union has got its own nuances in issues there. But 300,000 disadvantage for Democrats. You ain't making that up in a year.
No.
And I don't know what the hell the party was doing. I don't know where they've been, asleep at the wheel. But
bickering over leadership, replacing leadership.
Yeah. But on the other hand, like look at how much dysfunction we've seen at the Republican Party over the number of years under the Kelli Ward leadership. They're still registering voters.
Yes. And now that Turning Point's going after Gina Swoboda, I've got to think the Democratic leadership is like, get her out of there. Go for it, man.
Go for it, dude.
Go for it. Because apart from the fact that the statewide races didn't really fall for them all that well last time, she seems to be doing a very, very good job.
Yeah, it seems like Democrats should be looking at something like getting some organization up and running.
Yeah,
like a Turning Point or something. This is out there just registering people.
Yes. Take a look at what the Republicans are doing in this state and try and do that because their registration numbers are very solid.
Yeah. Other than that, man, what are you planning to do this weekend?
It's a big Oregon weekend for me. We got game 1 at 1:00, and then I'm going to the Liberty game at 7.
Awesome.
Where we have Sabrina Ionescu, Oregon legend, facing off against Satu Sabli, also an Oregon legend. They went 1-2 in the draft. They're both Ducks.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Looking forward to my Iowa Hawkeyes. Anybody who follows me on Instagram knows I always post pictures of my dog Joan.
Yeah.
Joan got herself an Iowa Hawkeye bandana. So
Joan got on Amazon and got that bandana. Got
that bandana delivered. The fact that she knows my credit card number is a little bit scary. Yeah. She's fired up, ready to go. Iowa plays the Albany Danes.
Oh, that should be a good one.
Is it the Great Danes?
I don't know. Are they Danish? I don't know. I don't know.
Or are they a Danish?
Yeah.
Like you're talking about the dog, the Great Danes, or the pastry?
Nationality, the pastry. Yeah, I don't know. And Oregon has Montana State.
Ooh.
And the point spread, it was like Oregon by 29.5.
Yeah, I think.
We don't do that. I wouldn't recommend that if you're a gambler. I wouldn't take Oregon in this one by 29.5.
Mm-mm.
And Montana State's FCS, but I think they're pretty good. I think they're like number 3 in FCS or something. Mm-hmm. It's a good FCS team. Oregon tends not to feast on those, particularly in openers.
Those opening Division II, basically Division II FCS for a more colloquial term. When you play those teams that are supposedly really good, man, they are always a tougher challenge than you think. And because you come out, you think you're going to do all this, and they usually hang with you for a quarter or two.
Yeah,
and then
the depth is where they struggle.
Yeah. And then you're like, what's going on?
Yeah. But playing a really good FCS school that's from the Northwest, like Oregon, probably would really dearly love to kick their asses.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a closer game, I think, than experts are predicting.
Yeah, I read somewhere that the Albany Danes, Iowa's opponent, it was described as a bad FCS school.
Okay.
So I think the point spread there is like 35 points or something like that.
Has Iowa scored 35 points in the last few years?
That
cumulatively?
The school deserves that.
Well, they've got a guy who can throw a 10-yard out pass now, according to video. So.
Look, there's some discussion now that maybe it was only a 5-yard pass.
Yeah, whatever. Like, we have video of an Iowa quarterback
of a forward pass,
and it was a spiral. I mean, what do you want?
Because you sent me that comedian. She was like making
Agar, yeah.
She was great, man. Just breaking down the Big Ten, and like the Iowa comments were like, "You can throw the ball forward."
Yeah, does it always spiral like that? Yeah, that is the Iowa football experience.
I mean, it's been at least 10. It's been almost a decade since the Iowa Hawkeyes had a competent quarterback that could actually throw the ball.
Yeah, it's not what you're known for.
No, we were never that. We never this bad at it. I mean, and there was, we had a few good quarterbacks back in the day. I mean, we had one almost won the Heisman Trophy, lost in one of the closest Heisman races to Bo Jackson back in the day. And he had the greatest name for a quarterback ever that I contend. His name was Chuck Long.
Yeah, that's
a
good.
Great name for a quarterback
name. Yeah. Yeah, Oregon's done a little better with quarterbacks over the last years.
Not according to The Athletic.
No. Yeah. Well, yeah. But, I mean, we've had a Heisman winner and at least 2 Heisman finalists. I forget. Was Justin Herbert a Heisman finalist? I don't think he was. But Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel were.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ever since Phil Knight took over that program.
But okay.
It's been pretty damn good.
I was there prior to the Phil Knight.
Yeah, you were there for some bad football.
I was. I had just graduated when they went to the Independence Bowl, and I believe it was the first bowl game in my lifetime.
Oh man! Well, it's
no
always,
one has ever been so happy to go to Shreveport than the Ducks were then.
It's funny too, because whenever I see like old video of Oregon, like pre-Phil Knight back in the '80s or whatever, it's always like they're playing at your Ducks Stadium, whatever it used to be. It's always just like dark, overcast. The shitty AstroTurf is flooded. There's like a big puddle of water in the middle of the field somewhere.
Yeah, but they insist it never rains in Autzen Stadium. The first time I got a sense of the Phil Knight influence, it was not a football thing. I had just graduated a year or two earlier. I'm working as a photographer at a station in Eugene, and they completed a renovation of the library at the University of Oregon.
Okay.
It was like an $8 million renovation, or might have been more than that. It was a major renovation. They did a very nice job renovating the library, all thanks to an anonymous donor. They could not say who donated the money. But
I'm sure there were clues.
Like the fact that they renamed it the Knight Library.
Oh, boy.
I believe in honor of Phil Knight's mother. He donated the money, and they named it after his mom.
Oh,
and that was.
Look, I don't want to take credit for it, but like, if you just call the place my name.
And for the record, Phil Knight has actually made a lot of donations that aren't strictly athletic.
Sure,
there's that, and I think a good chunk of his donation money, in terms of academics, has actually gone to Stanford too.
Okay.
I don't know if he got I'm not sure what his connection there is, but because he was an Oregon grad, at least he got an undergrad degree at Oregon. But yeah, since then he's donated a lot of money to the athletic department.
Yeah, he's done well.
Yes.
I saw it was a number of years ago now, but it was like a feature piece showing the Ducks locker room. It was like, good God.
I know. And I hadn't been there in years and years, and then was up in town, I don't know, 5 years ago. And it was the first chance I had to walk through campus and in many years. And my God, the athletic department there is now just ridiculous. I mean, it is beautiful, the whole complex. And on the main campus, the athletic section is sort of separated. It's all over by the stadium. The stadium's on the other side of the river. But if you walk through the main campus, there's also a brand new, giant, beautiful building that was new. And of course, it's the academic services for the athletic department building. So the campus is covered with these 150-year-old giant stone, beautiful classic buildings. If you haven't been to the campus, like they shot Animal House there because they wanted it to look like an Ivy League school, but the Ivy League schools all demanded to see a script before they shot it.
Oh, you couldn't have done that, yeah.
And Oregon didn't ask to see a script, so they shot it at Oregon because it had that classic college campus look to it. So you go there, and they've got all these old, beautiful stone buildings and these like gleaming metal and glass things, and that's how you know it's part of the athletic department.
Man. Oh, anyway. Anything else you want to talk about?
Nah, we can probably wrap it up there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like going to ASU. You knew you were in a business in a business building when everything was nice and it worked. You know, literally the social science building when I went to ASU, like the top floor was condemned because the building was falling in on itself.
Not part of WP Carey? That's not how that rolls?
Know where the money's at, man. Don't tell me what your priorities are. Show me.
Yeah. Well, the J School at Oregon was in like a 200-year-old building that looked like it would fall over if you sneezed.
Oh, boy. All right. I guess we'll end it right there. Yeah. Go Ducks. Go Hawks.
Ducks. Exactly.
And until, October, November when they play each other?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a meaningful game. So
that'd be nice.
It'd be nice if Iowa put together some impressive wins. Yeah. And then you guys can come to Kennick Stadium where you'll be welcomed with open arms. And that'll be an interesting week.
Yeah. Circle that for the pod. That'll be fun.
Circle that one.
Yeah. All right.
All right. I'll see you next week.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.